What's going on, everybody? It's Warren, and welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and everything MCU, and we just got episode 6 of WandaVision. And I must say, WandaVision does an incredible job at giving you a little bit more details each time, but also making it still confusing enough to make you crave the next episode for answers. And WandaVision episode 6 did not disappoint. There is so much packed into one episode. Calls to the Fantastic Four, to the X-Men / the Mutants, calls to Mephisto and Nightmare, and it appears that we have found out the way that the Mutants are going to be entering the Marvel Cinematic Universe. All of these things plus a ton of Easter eggs packed into one episode of WandaVision. So let's not waste any time, let's begin with our breakdown. But if you're new to the channel and you love Marvel, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest WandaVision videos and breakdowns. So this week actually starts off with an intro. Previous episodes would start off with a scene before we got the actual intro, but we are now in the 90s, and the WandaVision episode starts off with its intro, and it is straight from Malcolm in the Middle. It starts with Wanda and Vision's son's Tommy turning on a camera, 90s music blaring in the background, then it goes to each character introducing them just like Malcolm in the Middle did. But what's really interesting about this intro is what the lyrics of this song are actually saying. If you listen closely and turn on the captions, they are actually telling us what is happening in WandaVision, giving us a better idea of what is going on. The lyrics say, "Don't try and fight the chaos, don't question what you've done. The game can try to play us, don't let it stop the fun." Now, a few episodes ago, we learned that Wanda is really responsible for all of this, and she's controlling everybody, but she may not realize that she's actually doing it. Or at least she didn't realize it at first, as we go to find out later on in this episode when she's talking with who we believe to be Quicksilver at this point. She does go on to admit that it's her, but more on that in just a bit. But the lyrics, "Don't try and fight the chaos, don't question what you've done, don't let it stop the fun," refers to what Wanda has done and is currently doing right now in the Hexagon. Out of chaos, which by the way, Wanda's magic is chaos magic, so she made everything happen out of her chaos magic, created the perfect reality for herself from her chaos magic, but she hasn't stopped and really questioned it. She's kind of just went with it, not stopping it, not stopping the fun or her perfect reality. She didn't really care how she got in this perfect reality, she just cared that she was in it. The lyrics of the theme go on to say, "Some days it's all confusion, easy come and easy go, but if it's all illusion, sit back, enjoy the show." Now, at this point, I think it's established that this isn't exactly an illusion that Wanda is going through. This is actually happening in the real world. SWORD exists, and so do all of the other people that she is controlling. So the illusion that they're actually referring to is Wanda's illusion of her perfect reality, when in fact it is an illusion and not reality at all. The truth is she's actually controlling people and hurting them, but the illusion is her perfect life. Now, in some episodes she has questioned this and has been a little bit confused, which is what they're referring to, but for the most part she's just kind of gone with it, which is the lyric, "Sit back, enjoy the show." And then it repeatedly says, "Let's keep it going. Through each distorted day, let's keep it going." Wanda doesn't want to lose this perfect life where she has a Vision who is now all of a sudden alive and she's married to him and she has twin boys. She lives in the perfect little town and the perfect little house and her life is perfect. So she's going to do everything she can to keep it going. And the final lyrics to the song read, "Though there may be no way of knowing who's coming by to play." And of course this is a reference to Quicksilver, but not exactly the version that was her brother. He came unexpectedly and not in true form. Now later on, Quicksilver would go on to break the fourth wall and talk about how holiday episodes of old classic sitcoms and shows would have special guest appearances. And this is the Halloween episode, which would make Quicksilver the special guest. Speaking of Halloween, this is the Halloween episode, and we see many different characters in their comic accurate costumes. Billy and Tommy are really Wiccan and Speed in the comics. Each character is dressed up like their actual character dresses in the comics, or at least pretty close to it. Billy looks just like his comic counterpart Wiccan. Tommy doesn't exactly have a comic accurate Speed costume, however, he is mimicking his Uncle Quicksilver's costume, which is insanely comic accurate. Really, this is just super cool to see on screen. Wanda and Vision are also insanely close to their comic accurate counterparts, however we did see these in the trailers already. Still, very cool thing for Marvel to do. Wanda says that her costume is a Sokovian fortune teller. Obviously, she's not going to say, "I am the Scarlet Witch from Marvel Comics," although I think everybody would have freaked out if she did. And Vision is apparently dressed as a Mexican wrestler. But hey, Wanda seems to like it. She says, "Me gusta mucho," which means she likes it very much. And Vision, not really knowing any Spanish, replies with "chili con carne," which translates to chili with meat, which I guess Vision could be calling himself beef stew. Which again, who am I to question, because it seems like Wanda still enjoys that very much. Now, right off the bat, we start to notice the different personalities of the twin boys. Billy starts off by talking about family and friendship, and Tommy starts talking about being cool and candy. So it seems like Billy is a lot like his mother, and Tommy is a lot like his uncle, which makes sense considering the fact that Tommy is going to go on to have powers like his uncle. He can run really, really fast, and Billy will go on to have powers like his mother. So it seems like their personalities have transferred a little bit as well. Quicksilver is still there as the really cool uncle, and we have a really, really funny scene of Quicksilver and the twins shotgunning sodas. Vision makes the statement, "You never told me about your brother. I had no idea he was so good with kids." And Wanda says that he's just full of surprises. Now this, of course, is referring to the version of Witch Quicksilver that we got in WandaVision. This is obviously not Aaron Taylor Johnson's version of Quicksilver that we got in Age of Ultron, but it is in fact Evan Peters from the X-Men universe. So it is her brother, but it's not, which is surprising to Wanda. Now Vision breaks it to Wanda that he will not be participating in trick-or-treating with the family. He says that he has to go help with the neighborhood watch, but of course we find out that this is a lie, and in fact he's really going to go on and try to escape. He wants to find out what is outside of Westview, and he knows that Wanda won't let him leave, so he lies so he can get away from her. And of course Wanda is not thrilled about that, and she even says that's not what you're supposed to do. Again, she's in her perfect reality, or what is supposed to be her perfect reality, and in that reality, Vision is going trick-or-treating with the kids, not going to do neighborhood watch duty. Wanda, clearly upset, says, "You never told me," and Vision is starting to get somewhat of a backbone, and he says, "Well, I'm telling you now." It's very clear that since the last episode, there's only been more and more friction growing between Wanda and Vision, and then Billy steps in and confirms this, and he looks right into the camera as he says it, doing a fourth wall break that would make even Deadpool proud. Wanda's upset, but Quicksilver is very quick to jump in and say that he'll go trick-or-treating with the family. And he even says that the twins need a father figure. Now, there are tons of theories out there stating that Quicksilver could actually be the demon Mephisto, someone who I've said I believe is really behind this entire thing. And the reason that he could be behind it is that in the comics he wants Wanda's kids because they're actually part of his soul. So this Quicksilver father figure comment is very, very interesting. Then he makes another comment stating that he has the old XY chromosome. This is a direct reference to his mutant genes, the X gene, as it's called in the comics. Now, of course, Evan Peters' Quicksilver was an X-Men from the Fox X-Men universe, so technically he does have that X mutant gene. And this isn't the only time that mutants and genes are mentioned, and we'll get to that in just a bit. Vision finally leaves, and he tells Wanda to be good because he knows that she's the one controlling everybody, and subsequently hurting them. Vision leaves, and Wanda is clearly not happy, as you can tell by the look on her face, and this look actually looks like it's pretty evil. Vision isn't cooperating with Wanda and her perfect reality. He's kind of messing things up, and Wanda does not like that. Once he leaves, Wanda turns around and Quicksilver jump scares her, possibly hinting more that he is truly a villain. But as of right now, it just seems like he's the rad Uncle Quicksilver. Now, some people have noted a tattoo on his left shoulder. It looks like it could say Mom or MOM or HOM, standing for House of M, the comic storyline that has a heavy influence on the story of WandaVision. Or if it is MOM, it could stand for Multiverse of Madness, which we do know that this show will lead up to. However, this most likely really doesn't mean anything, as this is an actual real tattoo that he has in real life. But at the same time, they could have removed it but chose to keep it in. Probably because they knew people like me would try to dissect every single little thing, and this would probably drive them crazy, so it's kind of a cruel move by Marvel. Now, speaking of moms, there is a part where Quicksilver mentions his and Wanda's mom, and he mentions an old memory and we get a flashback. However, Wanda says that she doesn't exactly remember it that way, giving us a hint that this may not exactly be her actual brother, even though he is trying to play the part. But then he tells her, "You probably suppressed a lot of the drama," and Wanda kind of just brushes it off, but this is actually something that happens in the comics. Wanda suppresses a lot, and her subconscious kind of starts to do things on its own that Wanda isn't exactly aware of, which is basically what we're seeing here. Wanda doesn't always know that she's controlling people, it's her subconscious that's doing it. Now, in this flashback, there's a poster on the left wall of the house that they're trick-or-treating at, and it has an atom on it. And this could be an Easter egg for Molecule Man, who has the power to control atoms. Or this could be a call to the fact that Wanda's energy hex changes people on a molecular level, as Darcy said, changing the structure of Monica Rambeau's cells. Speaking of Darcy, the next scene that we have goes to outside of Wanda's hex to the sword base. Here, Darcy, Monica, and Jimmy are all very upset that Hayward launched a missile on Wanda in the previous episode. And here we actually learn a little bit more about Hayward. Monica, Jimmy, and Darcy seem to think that Wanda is the solution and not actually bad, when Hayward thinks that she is indeed bad. And we're starting to get the vibe that he doesn't like, as he calls them, superpowered individuals. He says Monica is an impediment to the mission because she likes superpowered individuals, quoting her old relationship with Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel. Then he reveals that he was not snapped. He says all you people who left have the luxury of optimism, meaning all of the people that got snapped during those 5 years. He gives us a little glimpse of what those 5 years were like. Apparently it was insanely hard, as one could imagine it would be. He makes a jab at Monica and her dead mother. Then he has Jimmy, Darcy, and Monica herself escorted out of the sword base. At this point, I don't think Hayward is somebody like Mephisto or Nightmare, more along the lines of he's somebody who just hates superpowered individuals, and as we find out later, is actually tracking Vision, so he most likely had his own agenda with Vision, so therefore is even more upset with Wanda, fueling his hatred towards those superpowered individuals because she's the one who broke in and took Vision. Hayward kicks them out, but don't you worry because Jimmy Woo is the freaking man. As soon after he goes to town, beating up all of the sword agents that are around him with the help of Monica. Back in Wandaland, we cut to the family trick-or-treating, and there are just a ton of Easter eggs in these scenes. The first one we see is a house that is apparently alluding to witches and probably Agatha Harkness. We see a black cat, which is a call to Agatha Harkness's cat named Ebony. Now, Agatha's cat Ebony had pretty special powers. It could sense when other mystical beings were around it, and it could even turn into a massive black panther, much like this inflatable black cat that we see here. Also, in the yard are 3 witches surrounding a cauldron, and if you notice, there are also witches' hats hanging from the roof. We get it, Marvel, there are witches involved with WandaVision. Wanda herself is a witch, the Scarlet Witch, and of course Agatha Harkness is as well. Now, as we go through these scenes, there are many different costumes. There are skeletons, there are mummies, there are genies, and of course there is Billy, Tommy, Wanda, and what seems to be a very evil-looking Quicksilver. Then, from that evil-looking Quicksilver, we get an insanely huge line drop. As the twins run away to go trick-or-treating, Quicksilver says, "Unleash hell, demon, spawn." Now, after this line was dropped by Quicksilver, it's going to be pretty hard to convince me, and I'm sure a lot of people, that Mephisto is not involved in this in some way, shape, or form. Like I said, Mephisto wants Wanda's kids in the comics because they are technically a part of him. He is the one who kind of got her pregnant, but in a magical way, not physical. So the twins were a part of him. They were his spawn, and Mephisto is a demon. Quicksilver is literally calling the twin boys the spawn of a demon and saying to unleash hell, which the hell realm is what Mephisto controls and rules. Now, Quicksilver has a very weird hairdo going on here. Now, you could say it's like the original Quicksilver in the comics, but what if these are actually made to look this way because they're actually trying to make them look like horns? Again, pointing that Mephisto, a devil or a demon, could actually be Quicksilver in disguise, or could simply be the one behind everything. And we get more evidence for this throughout the rest of the episode. Wanda still is kind of weary of Quicksilver, and she tries to test him, asking him questions about their childhood, talking about a person who had a weird skin thing who tried to steal his boots. Now, the weird skin thing could be a reference to Doctor Doom, who could have ties with Sokovia in the MCU. We'll have to wait to find out about that later. But Quicksilver realizes what she's doing. He says, "You're testing me," and he says, "Hey, it's cool, I know I look different." And Wanda doesn't really know why, and she asks him why. And his reaction is, "I wouldn't want to be reminded of the past either." Kind of avoiding the question, and Wanda doesn't really like the answer, but before you know it, Quicksilver is off with the kids collecting candy. But before he takes off and before that line, he mentions Shangri-La. Now, Shangri-La in the comics is a place that was founded by Vision, and Vision rules over it. Vision discovered the secrets of death and life, gave himself immortality, and made a pledge to protect mankind. This is something that we see happening in WandaVision. Vision is resurrected. He was dead, now he's alive. And he tells Agatha in a scene not too far from here that he will try to help everybody. From here, things start to escalate pretty quickly. Wanda talks to Herb, who was on the Neighborhood Watch, and figures out that Vision isn't actually working with the Neighborhood Watch like he said he was. Now, a few things to notice as Herb is talking. One is that there's a kid in a costume that looks an awful lot like Hobgoblin. And the other is that there's a figure that's a prop in a yard that seems to be looking at Wanda. Now, this figure kind of looks like it could resemble the Grim Reaper or Death, implying that the Grim Reaper could indeed be a villain and is kind of looking at Wanda this whole entire time. And this is noticed at different angles as she's talking to Herb. Now, Herb doesn't seem to be just a normal citizen here. If you noticed, he actually heard about everything that's happening with Quicksilver and the twin boys before they actually happen. He says like, and now everybody's covered in silly string, and then it happens behind him. And even more interesting is that before he leaves, he says, is there something I can do for you, Wanda? Do you want something changed? So it appears that Herb is aware that Wanda is controlling what is happening around. This was also demonstrated in an earlier WandaVision episode where Herb and Agnes were talking about Geraldine. And Herb was going to drop the line, we're all, and now we know that he was going to say something like, we're all trapped or we're all being controlled by a hex. Except Herb and Agnes don't really seem to be that controlled by it. Or are they? We cut to Vision, who is now seemingly noticing all of the children around. If you recall, in episode 5, Vision asked why there were no other children in the town. So before this episode, no other children existed. He continues to walk down the street and he starts to notice that the people are acting kind of funny. As he gets further from Wanda, he notices that the people aren't really moving and they're repeating the same behavior over and over again. Like the woman hanging up clothes on the clothesline isn't really hanging new things up, she's just going back and forth between one item. And he notices that she is crying, and this is most likely due to the fact that she's probably in pain due to Wanda controlling her. This was revealed by Norm in the last episode of WandaVision where he said it really hurts whatever she is doing. We then have a very weird and 90s commercial. There's a kid stuck on an island at sea who is starving. A shark pops up and says he can fix his starvation with Yo Magic. The only problem is he can't get it opened and eventually dies because of this. And this seems to be a metaphor for what is happening inside of Wanda's reality. Because you have to wonder, these are real people that she has taken over and they don't seem to have any control over themselves. Are they actually able to eat? This could be a very literal commercial where Wanda's magic is actually going to end up killing these people. Or it could be a metaphor for how Wanda's magic won't actually give her what she needs. A fake reality that is seemingly temporary isn't going to help her in real life. The next thing we have is of Wanda, Quicksilver, and the twin boys walking down the street, and a theater is in the background, and you can see that it says The Incredibles and The Parent Trap. Now this is actually a Fantastic Four Easter egg, as The Incredibles was a movie that is actually a homage to the Fantastic Four. This is something that Pixar themselves even recognized. And The Parent Trap could be referring to a trap that is set for Wanda, the parent of the twin boys, who could partially belong to the villain like Mephisto. And this could be a trap set by him. Now from here we learn a little bit more of why Quicksilver is there. He's basically there to stir up trouble and to create grief for Wanda. And he says, that's what you wanted, wasn't it? This takes Wanda back a little bit, and then Marvel adds such a clever line here. Wanda asks Pietro what happened to his accent, and Pietro asks, what happened to yours? Now when Wanda was first introduced in Age of Ultron, she had a Sokovian accent, along with her brother, but she lost that accent after Age of Ultron. We didn't hear it in Civil War, Infinity War, or Endgame, and fans have been wondering why it went away, and this is Marvel's way of acknowledging that. We then get a little bit more background of how Quicksilver exactly got there. He says he was shot up, referring to Aaron Taylor Johnson's Quicksilver in Age of Ultron, and the next thing you know, he heard Wanda calling him. Now if he truly is a villain, this very well could be a lie. And if you notice, his eyes are kind of red and his skin does have a bit of a red tint to it, implying that he could indeed be the villain. But if he's not, it does look like Wanda has somehow revived him in some way, perhaps using a summoning ritual or hex of some sort. Now, she stated in the last episode that she couldn't just bring somebody back to life, that there were rules. And perhaps that's why we see the Evan Peters version of Quicksilver and not Aaron Taylor Johnson's from Age of Ultron, because he's dead and she can't exactly revive him, but perhaps take a Quicksilver from a different universe. Then right after this, we discovered that Tommy has superpowers. He has super speed just like his uncle Quicksilver. Billy's powers haven't shown yet, but don't worry, we get to them in just a bit. Before they leave though, Wanda says don't go past Ellis Street. This comes back up later with Vision. But in the meantime, Darcy, Jimmy, and Monica are trying to figure out a way to try and get back inside of the Hex, in which we get one of the biggest Easter eggs in MCU history. Now, Darcy is way different than the person that we knew from Thor 1 and Thor 2. She's a doctor now, and she manages to hack into the system's security of S.W.O.R.D. pretty easily. And she discovers that Hayward has figured out a way to actually look inside of the hexagon, and he's tracking Vision, specifically the decay signature of vibranium. Of course, these are things that he did not tell the S.W.O.R.D. team, which leads us to believe even more that he is a villain of some sort. Now, I personally believe that Hayward is trying to make some sort of a weapon out of Vision. This is why he was experimenting with him. Vision was originally supposed to be Ultron, and it looks like Hayward could be trying to rebuild Ultron. But also, by the sounds of decaying vibranium, it sounds like Vision may not actually be fully back to life and may be falling apart. Now, Vision and Darcy, Jimmy, and Monica discover that the people who aren't close to Wanda but are on the outer edges of the hexagon aren't really moving. And the reason for this is because, if you recall, S.W.O.R.D. looks at everything through a TV. Everything in Wanda's reality is projected as a sitcom, and anything that isn't on screen in the sitcom isn't needed and therefore isn't moving. So basically, these people can only really move if they're around Wanda. Vision changes out of his Halloween costume and into the normal Vision that we know, and then he finds Agnes. Now here she seems to be under Wanda's control, despite in previous episodes not being under her control. Vision seemingly awakens her, and she says, "You're an Avenger. Are you here to save us?" And he says he is, but he doesn't know what an Avenger is, and this is because he can't remember anything before Westview, before Wanda resurrected him. Now Agnes seems genuinely confused here, almost like she was truly awakened. Then we get the scene that we saw in the trailers where she asks if she's dead because Vision is. Vision is confused and asks, "And what?" And she says, "Dead." And she says it a lot. This could tie into the theory that the Grim Reaper is truly one of the villains of the show. Now, Vision says that he's going to help, but Agnes says how. Wanda won't even let us think about leaving, and she says all is lost, but then she laughs very much like a witch. Now, regardless of whether or not Agnes is good or bad, I do believe she is Agatha Harkness, the witch that takes care of Wanda and Vision's twin boys in the comics. Now, at some points, she is clearly not under Wanda's spell, but it appears that she is here. So, what could be happening here is that Wanda has actually become too powerful. Agnes may have been free at first, but now that Wanda is stronger, Agnes can't break through. But now, a part of me does think that she is acting. She was there for a specific reason, to talk to Vision, perhaps to try and even push him to get out. Because if you notice, she was very lost before Vision awakened her, but once he unawakened her and put her back to normal, she wasn't as lost as she was in the beginning. In fact, she turns the car right around and leaves, like she knows exactly what she's doing. So I think this could have been an act to push Vision to leave the energy hex and get Wanda to make it bigger. Now, Vision finds himself on Ellis Street, which is where Wanda told the twins not to go past, and of course that is because this is the end of her Hex energy field. But this is also a call to Magneto. If you recall, in the first X-Men, Ellis Island was the target of Magneto's plan to turn humans into mutants. And this was Ian McKellen's Magneto, who we think could actually be the really big cameo. And thank you to my subscriber Andrew Chappell for pointing that out last night. Now, Monica mentions someone who can help her get through the energy field, and she mentions that it's a guy. Now, Monica did mention an aerospace engineer that could help her with the situation. This could be that same person, and this could be Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, Mr. Fantastic. Reed Richards is noted as the smartest Marvel character, smarter than Tony Stark, Bruce Banner, Shuri. He's the smartest, and part of his genius is aerospace engineering. And perhaps that huge cameo that both Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Paul Bettany have been talking about could be whoever is going to play Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. Now here's where we get that huge X-Men mutant Easter egg. Monica wants to go back inside the hex, but Darcy says you can't. Then she points out Monica's blood samples, and she says that the energy inside has rewritten her cells on a molecular level. Twice, because she had to go through the energy field twice, once when she went in, once when she went out. And Darcy says that it's changing her. This, ladies and gentlemen, is how the mutants will exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The power from the energy, which is said to be from the Big Bang. And remember, the Big Bang created the Infinity Stones, so therefore we believe the energy to be from the Infinity Stones, which awoken Wanda's powers. This same energy is awakening the powers within Monica, who in the comics is the superhero Photon, who has a vast amount of powers. Kevin Feige has confirmed the mutants coming to the MCU. We have been wondering for a very long time how exactly they're going to come into the picture, and this is apparently how. Now we know that Wanda's hex gets bigger at the end of this episode so she can save Vision. It's my theory that eventually this hex will go across the entire world, activating the X mutant gene inside of all those who possess it, therefore creating the mutants. Now we cut back to Wanda and Quicksilver again, and he again shows us that he is aware of everything that's going on. He knows that Wanda has created all of this, and Wanda asks him if he thinks it's wrong what she's doing, now fully aware that it's her in control. And he says no, he's impressed. This hints that, again, he's not actually Quicksilver. It looks like he wants Wanda to continue to create these things, to control this reality. He does drop the Avengers Age of Ultron Easter egg though. He says this is a lot more impressive than giving people nightmares and shooting red wigglies out of her fingers, which is what she did in Age of Ultron to the Avengers. Now he tries to get all cozy up with Wanda, talking about how they're family, but then she sees a dead Quicksilver just like she did with Vision, which I think could be Nightmare. Nightmare feeds off of fear, and what better way to bring fear to Wanda than to show her her dead husband and her dead brother. Now before we talk about the final scene, there is one Fantastic Four Easter egg. Darcy stays behind to look at some more files, and one of the project folders that she pulls up is labeled Project R4123. And this may be a coincidence, but this could be referring to the Fantastic Four number 123 in the comics. It's a story about the Fantastic Four, the Silver Surfer, Galactus, and Agatha Harkness. And since there seem to be a few Fantastic Four Easter eggs in there, perhaps this is hinting as what's to come in the future of Marvel Studios. And thanks to my subscriber Victor Herrera for finding this one out. Darcy also finds a file labeled Cataract Classified Weapons Intel, furthermore proving that Hayward is using Vision to develop weapons. Now Vision manages to escape the energy hex. However, he is not able to escape for long as it starts to pull him back in. Now it looks like the energy from the hex is actually what is keeping Vision alive, and that could be why Wanda set up this perimeter, so Vision could live. But he escapes and he starts to die. But thankfully, Wanda's little boy, Billy, has developed his powers, which are the power of telepathy and telekinesis, much like his mother has, and he can hear his father dying. Now, Wanda realizes what's happening, realizes that Vision got out of the energy hex, and she expands it. And she doesn't just expand it for a little bit, it looks like she expands it for miles. Now, unfortunately, Darcy was handcuffed to one of the trucks, and she gets sucked in, but we don't see the outcome for her. But we do see some sword agents get sucked in, and they turn into circus people, which shows us how Wanda views swords. She doesn't really take them seriously. But Monica and Jimmy manage to escape, and Hayward with some sword agents escape as well. Now from here, it's very clear that Wanda really is responsible for, let's say, a majority of everything that's going on. And it's clear that Vision has to stay inside of the energy field to stay alive. Now again, I think this energy hex is going to be how the mutants come into the MCU. And I think that by the end of WandaVision, Wanda is going to cover the entire Earth with this energy, awakening all of the mutants. It's very clear that she has the power to do so. They're still making us believe that Wanda is going to be the main villain. However, I'm not buying it. I still think there is somebody else behind this, like Nightmare, Mephisto, or the Grim Reaper. But let me know your theories in the comments down below, and let me know what you thought about WandaVision Episode 6. Don't forget to subscribe for more Marvel content. Don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends if you enjoyed it. For live updates, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.